Bill, what about the possibility that these protests weaken Rouhani and other moderates out there?
If they weaken the regime, that's a good thing. I mean, we should stand with the Iranian so-called moderates, a part of a regime that's repressive, theocratic, denies people fundamental liberties, denies people fundamental rights of self-government. So we should stand with the American people, with the Iranian people, on behalf of the American people against the Iranian regime. And there are lots of practical things that Congress and the administration can do. You don't have to like Donald Trump to hope that the Trump administration does sensible things in terms of sanctions on the IRGC, deterring people in the regime from using force, helping the protesters get good communications among each other, pressuring companies not to help the Iranian regime, cut off communications among the protesters. There's a lot of practical things Congress and the Trump administration can do, and I'm heartened by the fact that people from the Obama administration, Dan Schapiro, for example, are getting together with people who are critics of the nuclear deal to say, look, let's put aside these past disputes. Let's help the Iranian people. This is a huge moment, and we shouldn't be distracted by disliking Trump or disliking Obama or liking Obama. Let's help the Iranian people against their oppressive regime.
Excellent points, Bill. Trita, I want to stay on who these protesters are, because we heard some shouting slogans that are denouncing the supreme leader. You know the region better than I do. That is a very dangerous thing to do. Those kind of moves, does that tell you anything about a real force behind these protests?
Certainly it's a very dangerous thing to do, and we've seen those slogans come in relatively early in these protests, whereas it took very, very long time for that to happen in 2009. But when we actually look at what is causing this, I mean, the economic situation is very bad. People are rightfully very, very frustrated with the situation. But when you look at some of the root causes of this, of course, a lot of it has to do with corruption. A lot of it has to do with misuse of funds as well as mismanagement. But a large part of this is because expectation that the nuclear deal would actually bring about more investments. The reason why the investments have not come in, the main reason for that, is because of all of this uncertainty that Donald Trump has infused into the situation by constantly speculating as to whether he would kill the deal. The banks that are supposed to be financing these big investment projects that would create jobs are not willing to invest if they are not confident that the United States is going to stick to the deal. So what has happened is that investments have not come in, and as a result, poorer people have not managed to get jobs. The only thing that is coming into the country essentially right now is oil sales. Oil sales don't create jobs,
and that's created a tremendous amount of... has only been in office for the last year. These people who are out there protesting weren't living the good life a year and a half ago.
Certainly. It's about what the expectation was. The expectation was that by now there would actually be much more investments coming in and the economic situation would improve. People have been tremendously patient with the Rouhani government, going out and re-electing him despite the fact that he hadn't really produced much economic benefits for them. But now those expectations and that patience is running out, and the root cause of this is because investments have not come in, because there's uncertainty as to whether this nuclear deal will survive or not.
I think the root cause of this, Stephanie, is that the Iranian people don't have freedom, and they would like freedom. I mean, you can get upset about the very minimal sanctions President Trump put on the IRGC. His policies have not fundamentally affected anything. And if companies don't want to help the IRGC, the ruling regime in Iran, that's fine with me. Let's be more respectful of the Iranian people's desire for freedom.
Well, with all due respect, Bill, you've been arguing to bomb Iran for so long, so I don't know if you're really respecting the Iranian people. You've been advocating killing Iranians, so I don't think you or the Trump administration have the credibility to now say that you care for the Iranian people.
Hold on.
It's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about the Iranian people. Do you stand with the Iranian people? Do you stand with the Iranian people against the regime?
Of course I do. That's exactly why
Okay, good. Fine. We're in agreement.
We're in agreement. We're in agreement. A more democratic situation without killing them.
Trita,
I couldn't agree more.
Kristol is not advocating to kill anyone. Let's make that very clear.
No, on the contrary, there's been all of this argument for taking military action against Iran. So instead of actually having this nuclear deal that has been working.
Ambassador, last word. Oh, Bill, sorry, Bill.
Yeah, look, one thing I would say about this is that, you know, one of the reasons you have great economic problems in Iran is not simply because there hasn't been investment from the outside. It's also because about half of the GDP is basically taken up by the Revolutionary Guard and also by the religious charitable trusts. And that creates an enormous distortion. Even if you could produce some of the investment from the outside, it's not going to fix their economic problem soon. So the frustration that exists is a function of a structural problem right now. And in fact, one of the things the regime needs to do is to begin to think about how will it actually address that.
The frustrations are real. The question is, how do we help solve it? Gentlemen.